Hi, we're going to be continuing today in our study of the book of Revelation. We're going to be doing chapter 18 today. I'm going to be reading from the New King James Version today. And after these things, I saw another angel coming down from heaven, having great authority, and the earth was illuminated with his glory. And he cried mightily with a loud voice, saying, Babylon the Great is fallen, and has become a dwelling place of demons, a prison for every foul spirit, and a cage for every unclean and hated bird. For all the nations have drunk of the wine of the wrath of her fornication. The kings of the earth have committed fornication with her, and the merchants of the earth have become rich through the abundance of her luxury. And I heard another voice from heaven saying, Come out of her, my people, lest you share in her sins, and lest you receive of her plagues. For her sins have reached to heaven, and God has remembered her iniquities. Render to her just as she rendered to you, and repay her double according to her works. In the cup which she has mix double for her. In the measure that she glorified herself and lived luxuriously, in the same measure give her torment and sorrow. For she says in her heart, I sit as a queen and am no widow, and will not see sorrow. Therefore her plagues will come in one day, death and mourning and famine, and she will be utterly burned with fire, for strong is the Lord God who judges her. The kings of the earth who committed fornication and lived luxuriously with her will weep and lament for her. They will see the smoke of her burning, standing at a distance for fear of her torment, saying, Alas, alas, the great city Babylon, that mighty city, for in 1 hour your judgment has come. And the merchants of the earth will weep and mourn over her, for no one buys their merchandise any more. Merchandise of gold and silver, precious stones and pearls, fine linen and purple, silk, and scarlet, and every kind of citron wood, every kind of object of ivory, every kind of object of most precious wood, bronze, iron, and marble, and cinnamon and incense, fragrant oil and frankincense, wine and oil, fine flour and wheat, cattle and sheep, horses and chariots, and bodies and souls of men. The fruit that your soul longed for is gone from you. All the things which are rich and splendid have gone from you, and you shall find them no more at all. The merchants of these things who became rich by her will stand at a distance for fear of her torment, weeping and wailing, and saying, Alas, alas, that great city which was clothed in fine linen, purple and scarlet, and adorned with gold and precious stones and pearls. For in 1 hour such great riches came to nothing. Every shipmaster, all who travel by ship, sailors, and as many as trade on the sea, stood at a distance, and cried out when they saw the smoke of her burning, saying, What is like this great city? They threw dust on their heads and cried out, weeping and wailing, and saying, Alas, alas, that great city in which all who had ships on the sea became rich by her wealth. For in 1 hour she is made desolate. Rejoice over her, O heaven, and you holy apostles and prophets, for God has avenged you on her. Then a mighty angel took up a stone like a great millstone, and threw it into the sea, saying, Thus with violence the great city Babylon shall be thrown down, and shall not be found any more. The sound of harpists, musicians, flutists, and trumpeters shall not be heard in you any more. No craftsman of any craft shall be found in you any more, and the sound of a millstone shall not be heard in you any more. The light of a lamp shall not shine in you any more, and the voice of the bridegroom and bride shall not be heard in you any more. For your merchants were great men of the earth, for by your sorcery all the nations were deceived. And in her was found the blood of prophets and saints, and of all who were slain on the earth. Quite a lot of information given in this chapter, and I'm going to share some notes that I have with you all. I have quite a few notes today. Okay, verses 1 through 3. Some believe Babylon here represents a literal city or nation, and others believe it represents the ungodly world system. Both are likely correct, as Babylon is said to be fallen twice. The kings of the earth are included in the 10-kingdom confederation, which will come under the control of the Antichrist. Verses 4 through 8. God's people are called to come and be separate from the world's corruption and false religious institutions. This could also be a message for the Jews to flee New York City and the U.S. During the tribulation, when the Antichrist starts persecuting all Jews and the Christians. The elite will be stripped of their wealth and power, and the ungodly world system will be destroyed. Verses 9 to 11. The one day of verse 8 is now 1 hour, indicating that mathematical precision is not intended, but that it will happen in a short time. Babylon is here called the Great City. It is a great commercial city or nation. This seems to represent the USA. As the kings of the earth will mourn, and the citizens of the U.S. will not be buying their goods anymore. The USA is the largest consumer of products in the world and exports a number of products as well. Verses 12 through 14, these verses seem to describe all worldly pleasures from all nations as suffering a great loss. For when the great city or nation falls, then the rest of the world will indeed suffer as well. Verses 15 through 18. The scene seems to shift again to a particular city or nation as merchants stand afar off from Babylon from Babylon's destruction. The merchants of Tarshish traded purple, which is mentioned here, and they eventually migrated to the west, into Europe, and then the USA. Verse 19 through 21. The scene shifts to heaven, and while earth mourns over Babylon's destruction, the godly in heaven rejoice over God's justice being done. The great nation falls first, and then the world system under the Antichrist falls when Christ returns. The verse 21 is related to Jeremiah 51, verses 63 and 64, dealing with Babylon. And verse 22 and 24, speaking of the beast system, which will never rise again. And never again will the saints be killed for their faith in Christ. And now I'm going to read some other notes that I have here in a little short passage out of a book called The Babylon Code. There is a town in New York, and this is making a case for the U.S. being political or commercial Babylon. Now remember in chapter 17 we discussed there's also a religious Babylon. And the Vatican and the Pope has a big part to play in the one world religion. But here we're talking about political commercial Babylon. There's a town in New York State called Babylon. The United Nations has been called the modern Tower of Babel, and New York City has been called the Babylon on the Hudson. New York has a numerical value of 666. There are 10 chairs in the United Nations meditation room, which is in New York City. Sounds like the 10 kings who will give their allegiance to the beast. 10 chairs for 10 kings. Very interesting. George Soros. Some of you may know who he is. He's a very influential man throughout the world. He says that the U.S. is the only nation in the world in position to change the new world order, or to the world order, and it would become the new world order. And I agree with that. I'm going to read just a brief summary of some of these verses in Jeremiah chapter 50 and 51, which definitely seem to apply to the U.S. Jeremiah 51:7 talks about a golden cup in the Lord's hand. This signifies being spiritually blessed. However, it's used here in the past tense. America has been greatly blessed for a number of years, but sadly now that blessing's being taken away. Jeremiah 50:12. Your mother is confounded, you the hindermost or youngest of the nations. Jeremiah 50:23. The hammer of the earth is used. The U.S. is a diplomat of diplomacy. Verses Jeremiah 50:32. There's be fire in the cities. David Wilkerson also prophesied of this. Jeremiah 50:37. Land of mingled people and many mixed races. Jeremiah 50:38. A drought upon waters. There's been many droughts here in the U.S. recently. Chapter 54, verse 46. When Babylon is destroyed, the earth is moved. The cry is heard among the nations. 51:13. Thou who dwells on many waters. The U.S. dwells on many waters. We're surrounded by water on all sides except from the north. And there's a couple of other ones, but for time's sake, I'm trying to get through this. I wanted to read the rest of these notes here. Okay, the U.S. Capitol building mirrors Rome's temple built for the Roman gods, and the Washington Monument mirrors Egypt's Heliopolis, the city of the sun, with its temples and monuments to the sun god. And the Washington Monument is 6,660 inches high and 666 inches wide. And the monuments to the sun god are in Egypt, but again, there's similarities here in the U.S. Okay, let's see if I got that. Okay. The Apostle Peter referred to the Roman Empire as Babylon, and the Roman Empire will be revived in the form of Babylon the Great. The dollar bill is full of symbols from secret societies of ancient Babylon and Egypt. Also, the U.S. does not seem to fit the description, or excuse me, it does seem to fit the description of political and commercial Babylon. David Wilkerson and Doug Woodward, along with others, believe the U.S. is end-time political Babylon, which, according to Revelation, is an economic giant and great military power. The U.S. has the largest economy in the world and over 1,000 military bases worldwide. While the U.S. plays an important role, there likely will be multiple centers of power control because the world will be divided into 10 world regions before the final world dictator gains control. Now, read a little bit out of the Babylon Code for you. Some prophecy scholars say the Statue of Liberty is a symbol of the end times Babylonian system, and its creation was ultimately inspired by the legendary Semiramis, the Queen of Babylon. And the woman rides the beast is a statue outside the EU headquarters building. Other researchers say the Statue of Liberty is symbolic of the Egyptian mother goddess Isis. If this is true, it stands to reason that the original inspiration for the Statue of Liberty is actually Semiramis. If correct, America could very well be the daughter of Babylon, spoken of in Isaiah 47:1, Jeremiah 50:42, and Psalm 137:8. And the Statue of Liberty would be her symbol. We believe the final Babylon of Bible's prophets is New York City, while the land of Babylon is the United States of America. Douglas Krieger, Dean McGriff, and Douglas Woodward wrote in The Final Babylon. New York, with the Statue of Liberty standing like a sentinel in the harbor, fills a stark and ominous symbol of Babylon. And as Old Testament prophets refer to it, the daughter of Babylon. In his article, Statue of Liberty, Dennis L. Cuddy raises the possibility too, noting that an engraved marker was attached to the St. John the Divine Cathedral in New York City in 1997 that depicted the final destruction of the world-class megalopolis. This no doubt refers to Revelation 14:8, saying that a great city will be attacked. As it reads, Babylon is fallen, the great city. And we know that the great whore sitteth on many waters, and New York City is at the juncture of the Hudson River, East River, New York Bay, and the Atlantic Ocean. We know that the destroyed city is on the coast because Revelation 18:17 and 18 states that every shipmaster and all accompanying ships and sailors cried when they saw the smoke of her burning. We know that her burning occurs in modern times because 18:9 states that the kings of the earth shall see the smoke of her burning. And that would only be possible with instantaneous televised pictures. We also know that the destruction will probably be caused by some type of nuclear device because chapter 18:19, in verse 19, indicates that in 1 hour she is made desolate. Well, I hope this information, I know it's a lot to digest, but I hope it's enlightened you some. May the Lord bless you and keep you, and we'll talk to you later.